You ever have one of those really long days where you just do nothing but mind-numbing, repetitive stuff all day, and then you feel incredibly tired, but because you haven't had any stimulation all day, what you gotta do is drink a cup of coffee and then do something, but your mind is so fucking dulled that you just can't manage anything. Well, that's where I am right now. So I thought maybe I should get around to the Richard Carrier Speaks on Atheism Plus speech, because I figure, even with my brain barely working, I ought to be able to mock this stupid asshole. So here we go.
Atheism plus what? What do I mean by that?
Give me your fucking lunch money, dweeb. What? You gonna cry? You gonna cry to your mommy now? What? Just get... I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm tired. I forgot where I was. In my defense, every single thing about his appearance and his mannerisms totally justifies the reaction I just had. But let us not digress, Dr. Richard Carrier. Look at me, I'm Dr. Richard Carrier. I'm a doctor of dingleberries. Let me inspect your dingleberries. I'm sorry, I'm slipping. I just want to punch him though. Already, I don't know. I guess I am a bully. Hurts to admit that about myself, but I would like to bully him.
First, I have to give you some background ideas, a certain concept that I think that people overlook, even though it's quite obvious, is that atheism is now a community. It's not just, if you're an atheist, you're not just an atheist. If you're a part of this community, of the organized atheist community, if you're the sort of person who comes to conferences and so forth, you're part of the actual community. It's not just a bunch of isolated atheists anymore. And we know this, obviously, because we have the new atheism movement. Notice there wasn't a big, famous new humanism movement, for example. It's atheism that's taking the lead in public and getting public recognition and becoming the biggest identity movement.
Ah, yes, because people are so often logical and correct when they tie their intrinsic personality and identity to various concepts. That never backfires. Oh, wait.
Lots of people identify as different things, humanist, skeptic, and so on. But the biggest one, the one that's growing, it seems, the most, is the identity of being an atheist.
Yeah, for the longest time I never really thought of myself as an atheist, as an identity. And now that it's being claimed by the likes of you, I'm going to have to go ahead and carry on in that stead. I mean, I do care what people think about me. And if I went around saying I was an atheist, people would be like, really, that's funny. You don't look like a slump-shouldered, pretentious douche nozzle who uses a great number of words to say precisely fucking nothing. I mean, I didn't know that about you, but I guess now I do. I mean, now that I'm aware of your identity as an atheist. Thanks for fucking that shit up.
Atheists are also recognized as a constituency in the media. You find that media, journalists and so forth might have no idea what the skepticism community is or the humanism community, but they know there's an atheist community and they'll use the term atheist. It's recognized as a community that they can talk about and write about. And obviously we have numerous national, regional, and local organizations, tons and tons, hundreds and hundreds of local organizations, campus groups, community groups, that identify as atheists as part of their identity and role.
I'm sorry, role? Role?
And of course, obviously, as we're here, we have conferences, meetups, and social societies all across the country and beyond.
Okay, when you said constituency in the media, I just figure, hey, give them the benefit of the doubt, poor word usage, but maybe he slipped up. And now you're saying social societies after social societies, as opposed to anti-social societies. It's like you're just stringing words together and hoping nobody will notice that you're totally fucking stupid and not saying anything of value or merit or meaning.
Where we gather socially as atheists and identify as atheists. So this is definitely a community. And we have our own periodicals and, most importantly, online networks. Our biggest presence is definitely online, where there really is an atheist community in a large scope. Now, communities in general have responsibilities. If you're part of a community, communities have a voice, for example. You can speak, the atheist community, the reporters will come and ask, what does the atheist community think on this subject or that subject?
At which point you would say to the reporter, oh, what an adorable anthropomorphism of a community. See, a community is not a person, so a community cannot think a specific thing. Oh, any community, and especially this atheist community, is indeed comprised of individuals of many minds. It is a robust community. It cannot think a single thing about any particular topic. Oh, you silly reporter. I assume that's what you're going to say next.
So the question is, are we going to use the voice we have responsibly?
Whoa, you didn't even hold a vote. I wanted to use that voice irresponsibly. What's up with that? Come on. Anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody else want this schmuck off the stage? But you're going to tell us what's responsible, aren't you? I just want to know, because I can't think for myself.
Communities also have resources. We have money, we have manpower, we have online networks, we have communication networks, and many other aspects, resources that we can deploy. Will we deploy those resources, use those resources responsibly? And that includes information networks and action networks. And communities, as a community, will be judged by people outside that community. So will we ensure as a community that we're being judged accurately? And how do we want to be perceived as a community?
You know what I think would be a really great image to portray? A bunch of weak, butthurt bitches cloistered away from a world filled with hurty dissent. That's my vote.
This has in fact evolved into a constant pattern of intensified harassment of prominent atheist women by other atheists, mostly but not exclusively men. They actually are getting far more harassment, these women are getting far more harassment and abuse from atheists currently than from Christians or Muslims or other religious believers. And when I discovered this myself, I was extremely shocked and appalled.
Oh yeah, shocked and appalled. I believe that. You strike me as the shocked and appalled kind of guy, Nancy. I'm sure you waited until people could see you before you were shocked and appalled. But still, I'm sure you were. Now, let me just come up with a crazy little theory on why it was mostly atheists who were heaping this terrible abuse upon these women. Could it be that that was the community that they were fucking up by trying to make it all about them and their vaginas? I mean, they weren't doing that to the Christian community, so the Christian community could hardly be expected to respond. Just a wacky theory.
And this included stalking behavior in some of the cases of these women, sustained sexual harassment, following them everywhere online, digging through their past online histories to find things to make fun of or to invent new reasons to attack them with, repeatedly sending them hate mail, often with sexually harassing remarks or images, or repeatedly filling their blog and YouTube comments with those things, and then they have the audacity to complain when these women close their comments feature.
Complaint is not the right word. Complaint would tend to imply, I don't know, some sort of request for something to be better. But that's silly because anybody knows not to ask that. No, it's rebuke. It's saying, listen, bitch, we know that you are spouting horse shit. Because one of the prime indicators that somebody is spouting horse shit is they will not allow any sort of dissenting opinion or any kind of comment against them to be made and stand in the same general vicinity. Because their house of cards, only it's cards made of shit, will fall down. Okay, and no matter how many times you butthurt bitches say stuff like, it's like if somebody came into your house and took a shit on your living room carpet, no matter how many times you make your little analogies, people who are capable of rational thought and aren't old ladies who put tea on doilies will realize that you're full of fucking shit. Nobody's asking for better though, because look at you.
Now, it appears dozens, if not hundreds, of atheists have been engaging in this behavior, targeting any woman who complains about it, especially, or even who just discusses feminism in any substantial way. And the women who have been targeted by this harassment campaign include not just Watson, but Surly Amy, Stephanie Svan, Greta Christina, Ophelia Benson, Jen McCright, and Amanda Marcotte, and that's just the short list. So, when I'm talking about atheist community and atheism plus, what I have in mind here is the first thing I mean by plus is atheism plus basic moral values. Atheists should not be doing this. Atheists should not be tolerating this in our community. As a community, we should be speaking up against this and disapproving it. It gets a little worse, though, I'm sorry. When I first blogged about this, and I was not the first to blog about the Atheism Plus movement, not by a long shot, but when I first blogged about it, my first blog entry, I basically quite stridently denounced all this sexual harassment in no...
Strident of a sound, loud and harsh, grating. Oh, but we're not talking about sound. Presenting a point of view, especially a controversial one, in an excessively forceful way. Good word usage.
Compromising terms. I argued for greater humanitarian concern from atheists, and I advocated that we adopt at least 3 basic moral values. And I spelled them out, I explained them in detail, and those were compassion, integrity, and reasonableness.
Fuck you, get out of here with that radical shit.
And no sooner had I done this than I was accused of being Hitler, Stalin, and I was accused of starting a religious cult and various other things shouted at me.
So, I put $40 into the donation bucket next to the Santa ringing the bell, and no sooner had I done this than I was arrested with charges of indecency. Can you believe that? Incidentally, I was kind of waving my dick around.
So, before I continue with the rest of this talk, let me just get one thing clear, just get this out of the way. Things that do not make you Hitler, Stalin, a cultist, or a religionist. The obvious, calling men who engage in overt sexual harassment douchebags and assholes, not on that list. Arguing for greater humanitarian concern from atheists doesn't make you Hitler, sorry.
Hitler had a testicle and charisma. You, sir, are no Hitler.
Asking people to be compassionate, honest, and reasonable doesn't make that list. Disowning people who declare their refusal to be compassionate, honest, or reasonable. I mean, if they stalwartly say, we reject your moral values.
So somebody asks or accuses a Catholic priest of being a child molester, at which point he says, helping the needy and the poor does not make one a child molester. Helping people with their spiritual problems does not make one a child molester. Listening to the confession of those who are troubled with their sins does not make one a child molester. Performing this sacrament to allow patrons entry into the kingdom of heaven does not make one a child molester. Yeah, those aren't the activities we're talking about, dipshit.
I'm going to disown those people, and I'm going to say so. That does not make me a religionist or a cultist or anything like that. It doesn't make me divisive either. It means that I'm trying to promote humanist values, and that's kind of the point of what I'm going to talk about. But first of all, again, Atheism Plus is a thing.
That'd be a great bumper sticker. Atheism Plus. It's a thing.
We got to get that across. Oops. The term was first promoted by Jennifer McCreight based on an idea from one of her readers. To describe a movement that had been growing within New Atheism over the last 5 years. In fact, the movement existed before it was named.
Really? That's remarkable, because usually it works the other way. Somebody's like, holy shit, I got this nifty name, and we're going to have to design a movement that'll, meet up with its specifications. Okay, see, we're going to call it Occupy Wall Street. So what are we going to do? Why don't we occupy Wall Street?
This movement was for promoting moral values more in the atheist movement and the discussion of societal problems among atheists more than we already do, and for making the atheist community more welcoming of and responsive to women and minorities. And this was the basic idea of it. So when we're talking about Atheism Plus, we mean, is it going to come?
I'm not even going to make a joke about how Atheism Plus is a thing and how you're wondering if it's going to come, because I have bigger fish to fry. This is the second or third time that we've waited on you and your fucking slides. I think I cut out the earlier ones, but now it's starting to annoy me, because while you were fucking yammering with your repetitive tautologies, nonsense, hoosafudge, and various assorted malarkey, you should have had people hammering that shit out. You're telling us what we all should do, and you can't even manage something as simple as a well-orchestrated motherfucking speech, even when you should have support working on it. Unfucking believable!
There it is. Not just, we're talking about that we should be, if we're going to be an atheist community, we should be not just atheists, but we should be atheists plus all of this. When Jen did her blog, I quoted it, and this is a quotation from my blog of her blog. She gave a list of, these are the kinds of things we're talking about. We're going to be atheists plus we care about social justice. We're going to be atheists plus we support women's rights. We're going to be atheists plus we protest racism. Atheists plus we fight homophobia and transphobia. Atheists plus we use critical thinking and skepticism on all subjects.
He seriously just said that.
Now the naysayers, of course, have accused her and others of making this the complete list. This is not the complete list of all the things that we're talking about or advocating. This is just a list of what should be the clear and obvious no-brainers.
Breezing on past another example of your redundant language, clear and obvious no-brainers, and how that, just saying that itself, means they're immune from skepticism. Breezing on past all that. Why would you bother composing such a list of such clear and obvious no-brainers, one might wonder? Perhaps it's because it'll allow you later to refer back to these for whatever it is you need to do. Okay, I'm not explaining this well. Okay. Let's say somebody says, you know, you atheism plus people, you're kind of focusing on this harassment thing, and at this point you're like, that is clearly a function of your privilege. See, we are working towards social justice, one of our clear and obvious no-brainers here, so you aren't working toward our goal of social justice because you're making your privileged statements against the disadvantaged members of our atheist community, right? It's practically transphobic. I'm sorry, go on.
So that's the basic idea of it, but it can be broken down in a different way. In reality, what we're talking about is atheism plus humanism plus skepticism. Now there are actually three separate communities, and they exist, and there's a lot of overlap between them, obviously. There's the atheist community, the humanist community, and the skeptic community. We want to merge the ideals of all these communities within the atheist movement itself. We want the atheist community to basically be this: atheism plus humanism plus skepticism.
Yeah, you know, somebody's all religious, and they're starting to doubt whether there is or isn't a God. So, I mean, here's this atheist community representing itself like you were talking about earlier. Honestly, I can't remember. I was kind of dozing. So, okay, this person who's doubting their faith, they go and they look at this atheist community, and they're like, oh, well, turns out that if you don't believe in God, you also have to accept the humanism, the skepticism, social justice, women's rights, gay rights, black rights. You can't be transphobic because, you know, I mean, when people are really trying to decide on what they believe, the best thing to do at that point is try to shove as much extra shit down their throat, because people are really great with huge increments of change. That's a wonderful strategy.
Another point, not everyone furthering its goals adopts the specific label of atheism plus, nor need they. There's no requirement for this. And to give you an example, atheism plus is just a clinical name for a movement that exists.
Okay, just because you go down to the VD clinic to find women who you know put out so that you can finally lose your virginity, and you discuss these issues while you're there, that does not make these things clinical. That's not what that word means.
It's like saying that you're a Homo sapiens sapiens. That's your species. But that doesn't mean you have to go around constantly saying, talking about Homo sapiens sapiens, identifying as Homo sapiens sapiens. You can call yourself a person, a human, a man, a woman. What word you use doesn't matter. You still are clinically defined as Homo sapiens sapiens, but it doesn't matter what label you use. We understand what you're talking about. So atheism plus is just that clinical name for
You keep using that word.
the movement, the values and ideals that exist. We don't require anyone to adopt the name of this. And again, institutions. We have many different institutions within our movement.
And they just let you guys roam free like that?
They can pursue, certainly, their own narrower goals, their own specific mission goals, while still embracing atheism plus as a laudable set of goals within the wider atheist community that they serve. And that's the basic vision that we have in mind. Now remember I said earlier about communities having responsibilities. Number one, to give you an example, Christians, you know this, all of you know this, Christians claim atheists have no morals. So do you disagree with that? I'm assuming you do disagree with that. Then stand up for and act on your values. Defend them. Actually act on them in the way you treat your fellow atheists, as well as the lip service you give to those values when you're debating Christians. Embody the values that you believe in. Explain them and defend them. Number two, we can use our resources, all of those resources, our manpower and our communication networks, some of our money perhaps, to make the atheist community better informed and more active on social issues, and not just in science, philosophy, and religion. And I'm going to explain exactly some examples of what I mean in that respect as we get along. And also, let's accept and encourage constructive criticism of each other within the movement.
Again, he seriously just fucking said that.
And use it to better ourselves and the community and its institutions. We have to be ready to accept that and to make good use of it, and not be talking about we can't criticize each other. That's not going to be helpful for progress within the movement.
He seriously just elaborated on that.
So back to that idea of the community, that our community has goals.
Oh yeah, listen to this next part pretty carefully, because what it reminds me of is a pyramid scheme. Like, if you are the best at selling, or if you conform to the ideals of this company, this success paradigm, you too can rise through its ranks, and one day you will be in charge of many other people, each of whom can learn and climb up the ladder themselves. It's also very easy, let me lay it out for you, in our 22-step plan.
I mean, one of those, of course, is to increase the number of atheists, and here I'm saying preferably those should be morally responsible atheists. And so that should be a part of our idea of how to achieve our goals. That should be a component of what we're thinking about. Not just increasing the number of atheists as if their moral values and the things that they care about are irrelevant. And then, of course, to protect the rights of atheists. And that includes the right to be free of harassment online and off. And that doesn't necessarily mean political rights. There are also moral rights as well. Moral rights that we can stand up and defend socially as a community. And then to serve the needs of atheists, including knowledge interests and social needs. And I'll talk about these each in turn. And as I talk about this, I'm going to be talking about what organizations can do, but I have to tell you, this movement has been around for years. We've been working on it, and we've been influencing and talking to organizations all across the country, locally and nationally. And many organizations have already been responsive to a lot of our ideas. And I have to say, American Atheists is really on the forefront of being responsive to these ideas. And I'll give you some examples as we go along. But when I talk about organizations, I have in mind all organizations. So if there are people here who are members of other organizations, local organizations, campus groups, other national organizations besides American Atheists, heed what I'm talking about. And all of you, there are many of you here who are going to be future leaders of the movement. Because I see this trend of people accepting these ideas and values and promoting them within organizations, and I want that to continue. And the only way to get that to continue is if you, future leaders in the audience now, also believe in what we're talking about and understand what we're talking about and can promote them and keep the ball rolling forward when you finally come into control and influence within these organizations. Now, I mentioned the fact that we're working on increasing the number of atheists. We saw a talk earlier showing that looks like we're doing, American Atheists especially, doing a pretty good job at this. Certainly it's significant. They're having an effect. But we also, I think atheist organizations need to focus on the second bit a little bit more, this idea of promoting socially responsible, morally responsible atheism.
Gee, Richard, how do I sign up? I mean, how much will it cost for my starter kit so that I can someday be the leader of groups of people of my own? I want to be the shepherd to the pack of sharks. Well, it's amazing. I'm proud of myself for getting this far through this drivel. Everybody have a nice night.